in university, you went into Schulich. Before that, did you know you were interested in business? How did you get exposed to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So before Schulich, I was always pretty set on entering the business world in some way or form. I learned from my dad and from my uncles as well. It was just the natural path forward. Sometimes it becomes family way. So I knew I wanted to go to business school. The path I ended up taking after was a little bit different. I was consulting stream at Schulich and I did all the interviews. I had the offers, but then something else spoke to me on the nonprofit side. At that point, I realized that the nonprofit is also very much a part of the business sector. So I could use that.
Okay. And for students who are looking into, I know the cutoff for Schulich is very high. So in terms of getting that motivation and then pushing to getting into the university itself and that program specifically, do you have any advice for students to get to that finish line or?
Absolutely. Before university, I was doing the International Baccalaureate program, IB, and it's a very intense high school program in itself. And there were times when I found that very frustrating because, like, almost university level, but at that younger age. But just finding the perseverance there, I found that it really prepared me. So much is going to change after you go to university. And at that point, it feels like the decisions I'm making now are set in stone, but they really aren't. There was a point for about a year and a half where I really wanted to be a journalist because on the side, I loved to write that print path. But I found that pursuing business studies made more sense. And then I could continue to write. And the writing has taken so many forms in my career and my personal life. So I would say for somebody who is very ambitious towards a program like Schulich, it can be stressful, but it's just one day at a time, putting in that work in the moment, not worrying about tomorrow, but learning for the learning itself rather than securing the grade, often secure the grade much better. So yeah,
Right.
that's what I need.
Were you involved in any extracurricular activities during your time in high school or?
I used to tutor French and I used to do DECA. So DECA was my main activity.
Right.
And for those who might not know, DECA is a business competition which takes place at the regional and provincial and national level. So I used to do regional and then each year I would also do provincials and played there. So that's another part for sure. Having strong extracurriculars make for a really good university application. And
Yeah.
often it you end up wanting to do lots of things, but focusing in on one or two. So for me, it was DECA, tutoring, and lacrosse as my sport. So those were the three key things.
Got you. And once you started Schulich, it is a rigorous in terms of the course load and whatnot, but how did you go through that experience? And I'm assuming you probably did activities and probably summer placements. So how was that experience as well for you?
I feel like those 6 years, the last 2 years of high school and the 4 years of university, I feel like nobody really saw much of me. And it was
Yeah,
just
that's
constantly one thing after the other, whether it was assignments and all-nighters or extracurriculars. I found that sacrificing sleep had to be an option at that point, and we made those choices. But again, I reminded myself that this is happening today, but it won't be forever, and things eventually simmer down. There was no part of it that was necessarily easy, but you find those friendships as well with people who are going through the exact same thing and have the same stressors. And it ends up being very comforting and you find friendship in that. It was intense. I don't think about that time very often anymore, but it was good.
yeah, I feel consulting especially, right? The number of cases you have to go through, as well as just a level of detail for different segments within business. So, did you have a strategy for that, or was it you just learned as you went through, and that's the approach that you went with?
So, sorry, just to clarify the question, like a strategy for how I organize my time.
Yeah. So, in terms of because with consulting, it's case based most of the time, being able to study for it, prepare for it, like all that entire process, like how was that for you?
It was good. And I do remember quite a few case competitions at Schulich. One stood out in particular. It was a KPMG competition, and we placed quite high in that one, my team. So yeah, it involved a lot of prep.
Yeah.
Um, my role for time management and organizing lots of various competing priorities is to compartmentalize. And When I'm thinking about one thing, I only think about that one thing, even if there are all these invasive, oh, I have to do this, I have to study for that final, I have to call this person back, I have to do that. I have to blank everything out in the moment and focus on that one thing. Sometimes we only achieve 80% of that, but it still goes a long way.